Hey, what is going on, guys? In this video today, we're going to be discussing the ongoing debate of the Deagle versus the SMGs in Fortnite. Ever since Double Shotgun was removed from the game in Season 5, the 5-slot inventory meta has more or less been set as this. Slot 1 is your AR, Slot 2 is your shotgun, Slot 3 is the complement to your shotgun, and then Slots 4 and 5 are some combination of either mobility, healing, a sniper, or an explosive weapon. Some people like to try some more unique combinations at times, but that's the ideal setup you're going to want to stick with in most situations. I've already made a video breaking down and ranking all of the ARs, which covers Slot 1, and then all of the shotguns, which covers Slot 2. So I guess it only makes sense to wrap it all up by ranking the viable options for Slot 3, which basically just means the Deagle and all of the SMGs in Fortnite. I have talked about the Deagle and how much I like it in previous videos, but most of those were a few months ago when I was just beginning to learn how to really use it. So now that I've become much more comfortable with it, I feel like I'll have much better insight when it comes to helping you guys decide between Deagle or SMG. And I'll also have some good tips on how to be successful with whatever you choose. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Alright, so let's start this video off by specifically talking about the Deagle. I think at this point, everybody knows that it's one of the most unique weapons in all of Fortnite, and it's very different than all of the other options for complement to your shotgun. So one of the biggest discussions going around in the competitive Fortnite community right now is basically a debate on whether or not the Deagle is overpowered and if it needs to be nerfed to some degree or even just straight up vaulted. That alone should show you how good it really is. However, I think that the Deagle is simply a weapon which is really only overpowered in the hands of a very good player. This isn't like the Infinity Sword, pre-patch compact SMG, or the old double pump. The Deagle does certainly have some very powerful strengths, but what keeps it balanced is the fact that it also has some really relevant weaknesses. An average player can't just pick up a Deagle and suddenly be able to absolutely dominate and win games because of it. It requires a certain amount of mechanical skill to be successful with, and as I previously mentioned, it also requires a playstyle that's very different than if you were to instead be using an SMG. The strengths are probably pretty obvious if you've ever seen a really good player use the Deagle before, and I've also discussed most of them on this channel before. It provides insane structure damage potential, it's probably the only weapon in the entire game that offers close, medium, and long-range burst damage. You can abuse aim assist with it really well if you play with a controller. Unlike a lot of weapons in Fortnite, it almost always ends up rewarding good aim, and it's just generally a very versatile weapon. I mean, seriously. Depending on the situation, you could use it like a shotgun, sniper, or even an AR. And even though that was a pretty long list of positives, I want to go more in-depth with the weaknesses of the Deagle, because they show why the SMG may be a better option for a lot of players, and because I can help you Deagle users try to counter those weaknesses. The biggest one right off the bat is the fact that the Deagle requires a lot of precision to use. This is especially important in those close-range fights where you're basically using your Deagle as a second shotgun. Having two single-shot weapons like the Pump and Deagle can be a very challenging combination for even really good players. And that's why I think it's foolish to assume that the Deagle is simply better than the SMG for every Fortnite player. A super common situation that happens all the time in Fortnite is you'll pump a guy with, say, 150 health for something like 120 damage. If you have an SMG as the follow-up to your Deagle, you can just keep holding down right trigger, and even if the guy builds, you'll eventually sneak the 1 or 2 shots needed through his builds to get the kill. It's something that really requires no skill in terms of accuracy, and it's one of the biggest selling points of the SMGs in Fortnite. If you're using Pump Deagle though, even though you hit that initial shotgun shot for 120 damage and your opponent is really weak, you're still going to need to land either either another shotgun shot or a Deagle shot to actually get the kill. And that can really be a struggle for a lot of players, because if the enemy builds to protect himself, you're going to need your Deagle to shoot out one of his walls and then replace it with one of your own and go for a quick edit play, or you can shoot out the wall and then quickly switch back to your pump and try to land another shot. It simply requires so much more quick finger movement and accuracy than what you would ever need with an SMG. However, a quick little tip I have regarding the shotgun and Deagle combination to somewhat counter this weakness is to not be afraid of using your AR in close range situations. Obviously, it won't have the same fire rate or accuracy in close range situations as a normal SMG or compact SMG. However, even just non-ADSing with any kind of fully auto AR is still fairly decent as a close range option. And if you have an enemy at something like 25 health, a lot of people will find it way easier to land one AR shot compared to either one Deagle or one shotgun shot. Another weakness of the Deagle is the fact that out of all of the close range options in the game, it's probably the worst choice for a straight up 50-50 fight. A lot of players in Fortnite have a bad habit of once they switch away from their shotgun in a hectic close range fight, they don't go back to it until either the fight is over or they find safety in something like a 1x1 or the inside of a building. This obviously isn't ideal, and constantly switching back to your shotgun is something you want to get used to in close range fights. But if you have an SMG, you'll still have a decent chance in a lot of those fair 50-50 fights. With the Deagle, however, that simply isn't the case. It fires at a slow rate of one shot every 1.25 seconds, has relatively unreliable non-ADS aim, and maybe most importantly, has a max body shot damage of only 75 with the purple Deagle and 78 with the gold Deagle. So just to compare it to an SMG real quick, with the gold Deagle, you're shooting 0.8 shots per second with a max body damage of 78 per shot. With a blue SMG, you're shooting 12 shots per second with a max body damage of 19 per shot. Although DPS is a somewhat flawed statistic, it actually does kinda make sense to compare it for close range weapons in a 50-50 fight scenario. And if you do the math, the gold Deagle has a max body shot DPS of 62.4, while the blue SMG has a max body shot DPS of 228. So that means if you're using shotgun Deagle as opposed to shotgun SMG, you cannot let yourself get caught in 50-50 fights where you have the Deagle in your hand. Unless you hit a miracle headshot or you're facing an extremely weak opponent, you are going to lose that 50-50 to someone using an SMG pretty much every single time. The way you avoid those 50-50 fights is by making sure you're building after pretty much every single shotgun shot you take. When you have shotgun SMG, you typically want to hit a shotgun shot, switch to your SMG, spray to finish the kill, and then back to your shotgun. But like I described, that doesn't really work with the Deagle. So the rhythm you want to get down is shoot a shotgun, then immediately build to protect yourself. By the time that action is done, your shotgun will be ready to fire again, so you repeat the same process of shoot and then build over and over again. So I think that was a solid overall summation of the strengths and weaknesses of the Deagle compared to the SMG, and how you need to play to be successful with it. So now it's time for my overall verdict and rankings in regards to the Deagle versus the SMGs in Fortnite. I think that the Deagle is simply too good at too many things to not be the #1 best complement for your shotgun. Although it definitely isn't as good close range as the SMG, it's so much better in every other situation. But like I've made obvious throughout this video, even though the Deagle is objectively the best, that doesn't mean it's the best for everybody. So now let's rank the SMGs. What's really interesting when it comes to the SMGs is that statistically, the compact SMGs are probably better than all of the normal SMGs. Just to compare the purple compact SMG to the blue regular SMG, the blue SMG has a slightly higher DPS, but the compact SMG has a significantly larger clip size, the same spread, and a slightly more controllable bloom. However, maybe I'm underestimating the DPS advantage of the blue SMG a bit, because I feel that I prefer it to either of the compact SMGs, and sometimes I'll even be tempted to take a green SMG over the compacts as well. So I'd probably have an overall rankings that goes something like this. From best to worst, the Deagle, blue regular SMG, gold compact SMG, green regular SMG, purple compact SMG, and in last place, the gray regular SMG. But I'll admit that a lot of the compact SMG versus regular SMG decisions just come down to personal preference, and you should go with whatever you feel more comfortable with. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you watched the entire thing, be sure to let me know with a comment down in the comment section below. This video was about the Deagle versus the SMGs in Fortnite, so I want to know, do you guys prefer using a Deagle to complement your shotgun, or an SMG to complement your shotgun? Be sure to leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe, turn on post notifications, do whatever the heck you want, and I will catch you guys next time.